she's calling back. We're going to try to give her a call again, and then she just added another phone number to the 13-year-old grandson who's possibly with the daughter. Step out with this.
2412.
Veteran crisis hotline calling in, so they have a female veteran's off her medication. She's at work to Safe Haven. Detecting 12, take a check that one out.
6-1 bullet, 2-1 start, take a shot.
Officer still stands for talk? No.
Offender in custody.
Thanks. Anyone else close by this result, let me know. First number. 10-4.
Is the domestic related? Another phone number to the 13-year-old grandson who's possibly with the daughter. Step out with this.
2412.
Someone's calling in, so they have a female veteran's off her medication. She's at work to Safe Haven. Detecting 12, take a check that one out.
6-1 bullet, 2-1 start, take a shot.
Officer still stands for talk? No.
Offender in custody.
Thanks. Anyone else close by this result, let me know.
10-5.
33. I'm going to supervise and
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because I didn't know if it would work out that good. Uh, little thrown together setup. Uh, I'm gonna have to fine tune it some more later. I'm gonna have to fine tune it some more later. But good morning, everybody. Thank you for hopping in. Hopefully, you can hear me. If you need me to turn it up or turn it down, let me know. I don't know. It's
I
a
can hear
different
you
microphone.
perfect.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Because
Yeah,
this is
I
my
can.
first time without my microphone because it worked so well without it before that I just stopped using it.
Yeah, you sound great. Yeah,
Okay.
yep. So we both are using different microphones today, so I appreciate it. Um, it's going to be a different kind of show this morning. We're going to be doing a couple episodes with this series. It's something that we brought up before about how we would kind of discuss it on a podcast form, and then later on in time is when we could have that final product out. But I think this will be cool too because um, a lot of the community uh, has been here, maybe not from the beginning, but uh, very close to it. And so I think it's going to be not only a blast to the past for them, but also a blast to the past for me because uh, just as I was looking at, some of my first episodes that I ever did, uh, I was just like, I don't know. You just look at it, and it's just, it's so plain. It's so generic. It is what it is. But there's a lot of stuff that that we not only with Idaho 4, but other cases too, as we've kind of gone on in time. And it'll be an interesting conversation. I'll say that. So thank you for hopping up here with us, Rosee, and thanks for doing this because I've had a lot of people reach out to me for the last couple years, even before I started doing the on location all over. They were talking about how I should write a book. So I always told people I'm gonna have to have somebody interview me. I I don't know if I could. My mind would let me sit and write a book. So we'll do it this right. So
Yeah, no, it's just this. I think following on from what you were saying, I think it's just really good that everybody feels like they're a part of it as well. So this is something that like everybody's here for it. Yeah.
They are because it's always been a community. And don't skip your treadmill. Listen to us while you're on your treadmill. It's community. Community's always been important and has always been a key because it's like I always discuss about the ocean of truth and justice. If we're all causing the friction for the truth together, you could see it from outer space. And so the community is a part of it because a community not only mixed with the instinct and the detail that I do on my end without others. Hey CJ, have you heard about this? Oh, there's a lot of those things that or even sending information, stuff like that, which added on or maybe helped answer a question or a direction that could then lead us into more information and things like that. So community is always they'll always be a part of whatever story that I have. The community will always be a part of it, always.
Yeah, and I think that will be the difference when this book does happen. Because I mean, part of writing a book is having to look at the other books on the same topic, and I think that community aspect would be very unique to this, really.
Yeah, and it's especially with kind of like how I started out even doing this. It was something that I never even really, I don't know. Ever since I was in high school, uh, and good morning, everybody. Ever since I was in high school, there was always people saying, damn, man, you should work for the radio, and I always, but it was one of those things where I did want to, but it was about sports. I wanted to talk sports radio if I was going to talk on the radio. And so as I got older and a certain particular radio station in Akron, I got addicted to WNIR talk radio, 100.1 FM. Shout out to them. Um, I don't know. I listened to them for like 15 years before I even thought about doing stuff like this. And I always enjoyed it. It was, I always looked forward to it. It was a talk show that was on in the morning for 4 hours. They had different talk shows, whatever hour you wanted to listen to, and each had their own unique style and their unique presentation. And but the one thing that it always had was it always had people that were talking about the truth, not necessarily what you hear in propaganda or mainstream media, but it had people talking about the truth. Um, and it had people getting to know each other and build relationships. You could hear the relationships being built over time with the callers, and so whenever it was something I always had in the back of my mind. It's like, yeah, I'd like to do something like that too, current events, stuff like that. And then COVID happened, and that's kind of what forced me to do it in a way. Because being by myself, and my family's in different states. Back when we had that lockdown, um, I was closed off from everybody. The only interaction I had was with people at work, and they were everybody was getting it like crazy. And so it was a very scary situation. Um, if you didn't test negative 2 times, you couldn't come back to work. You only got paid for 2 weeks if you got sent home. It was a really scary time. And but it was difficult because I was thrown into like a depression during that time period. And so I would come home, and my days would consist of coming home, and in order for me to have some kind of social interaction, I just hung out in YouTube true crime shows and in the chats, and always made comments and things like that. And I would get invited to come up on panel a lot. I just never did. I just never did. I don't know. It was just like, I don't know. I felt weird, and and so yeah, it's weird. Like even behind a camera, it's like it's weird because like being behind a camera, I'm not really comfortable with it. But
Yeah.
I, I do it because I feel like I want to bring more of a closeness, to people, and so that's why I'm on camera. But yeah, when it came to COVID and the depression that I was getting into because of no social interaction, holidays, I was by myself. Every day I was by myself. And And so it came to this point where I was like, I gotta figure out something. I gotta figure out something. Um, and so that's when I really started thinking about, doing it because I needed that social interaction. Things started to lift up COVID wise a little bit. Things started to open up. But I still had that depression because, for almost a 2-year period, uh, you're not really doing nothing. And so it's one of the reasons that I did the show was because I was like, well, I should just try it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and so yeah, at the end of October 2022, I started to see if StreamYard would even work on my computer. I was like, well, let me see. I seen that little duck and I was like, oh, that's the program.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the program everybody uses. Let me see if it'll work on my computer, And I was like, that'd be cool to talk to people. And
Yeah.
and so I did a couple things and did like a practice where I just practiced to see if it would even go live. And then the next practice I did was to see if the microphone worked. And then the next practice after that was to see if the microphone and the camera worked. And I'm like, okay,
Right.
I think it can work.
But did you expect to get to where you are now? Like, did
Not
you think
at
this
all.
would happen? Not at all.
No, that wasn't what I wanted to do was I just wanted to have a nightly 7 p.m. Central show. And that was it. Basically, instead of coming home and hearing everybody else's opinions, I was like, why don't I speak my opinions? When I'd be watching different things and people would see it one way but I would see it in a completely different way, and I'm just like, man, I wish I could explain what I'm
Right.
seeing or what I'm feeling. And so yeah, I it was obviously I did some true crime. I did some other shows that wasn't true crime, more current events, and what I envisioned in the beginning was just to have a nightly show, get used to the program for a couple weeks, and then start doing the phone call stuff like WNIR 100.1 FM in Akron.
Right.
And I wanted to talk different things, but I was watching a lot of the true crime channels there right before I did it. And there are some cases that I wanted to talk about, so it was a little mixture.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask because you said you were hanging out in true crime chats on YouTube. How did you gravitate towards that when you were originally interested in sports, though? Was it like what was your interest in true crime initially?
Well, because that's when I cut the cable cord and I lost all my sports. So, that's the truth. I cut the cable cord back in 2017. I think it was 2017, 2018. Cut the cable cord, and that's when I lost all my sports. So I was always into like true crime, those true crime shows, like the TV shows and stuff, not the shows that would be like a dramatic story in a TV series. It was more like Forensic Files and
Right.
things like that, and then plus being around the stuff that I was around ever since a child, when it came to the streets and stuff, I saw a lot of stuff too. And so different things kind of interested me. And it was more about just knowledge, just soaking up knowledge about different things. And I seen a lot of it, growing up. And so it was one of those things where it was like sometimes you could put yourself in a situation and look at that situation and kind of be like, oh, uh, I don't know. It just how they worked together to really like solve crimes,
Yeah.
and how they could like just like seeing the people just do everything they could to try and help another loved one. It was it was one of those programs that you always wished at the end that they would find out what
Yeah.
happened. And
Yeah, because I always find it really interesting what draws different people to true crime. I've heard you say a lot that you like documentaries. So I was wondering if it was something to do with the realness of it as well, like just the fact that
yeah,
it's so far beyond like entertainment purposes, because it's something that's it's very impactful if you think about just the topic that you're discussing. I suppose it's like the most real out of all topics on YouTube if you think about it.
yeah, yeah. And it's current and you can make a difference too. I started watching, it was when the Kylie Rodney case started happening.
Right.
But I started watching towards the end of it, maybe a month before the end of it. And I was just kind of hanging out and just trying to like, I was exploring a lot of different channels, just checking out a lot of different channels, just trying to see what it was about. And there's just a lot of things that a lot of things that I noticed as I was going to different ones, and I would take little bits from each one and kind of, man, I don't know if I would do it like that, or I would, or maybe that's a good idea, or different things like that. And just a lot of it is what I wouldn't do, you know,
Yeah.
uh, is what I learned from it before I did mine. But yeah, I was just hanging out in a couple channels, you know, um, and then you would see a lot of the current stuff, like when Gabby Petito, when that Red, White, and Bethune video came out. I was watching somebody's show that night when that video had just released, and it was like, oh gosh, there's a lot of them, a lot of them that it's current. And it's, again, it's about community. And so even if you're sitting there and you're watching a program, you might notice something that somebody might not, or somebody might have overlooked, and that could be uh, some kind of help that might help when it comes to these cases, because everybody can definitely make a difference, even if you're just sitting there watching.
Yeah. Do you think that there's something different about the Idaho 4 case? Because I mean, I know that a lot of creators are drawn to it, particularly that case, like myself included. And I still am not entirely sure what it is about that case. But do you feel that there's something different about the Idaho 4 case? Not
Yeah.
to unlike any other cases, but when it comes to that case, there's something, I don't know if it's like a greater sense of mystery or if it's because of the gag order coming in, but there's something about it that, I mean, how do you feel it differs?
I mean, it differed because, uh, number one, the brutality of it. I
Right.
mean, not to say that that has never happened, or any of this stuff has never happened before, but of it's a mixture of uh, the growth of the true crime community at that period of time. It's a mixture of how a lot of people, I mean, even before the Idaho 4 case happened, I remember like getting to a point where I only watched like one or two news stations because I could, all of them were about BS. So it was a mixture of a lot of things. You had a lot of people being fed up with mainstream media uh, at that point as well, and so they were going to YouTube and different shows and stuff, and then plus the brutality, and then also um, no press conference until 3 days later. And when there was a press conference, there was nothing but "you're safe, but we don't know where this person's at," which is it contradicts itself. So it was a lot of that mixed together, um, that
Yeah.
I think contributed to it.
And I suppose it's also very frustrating. I wasn't around yet at the time of the press conferences. I came to the whole case a bit later, but I can imagine because true crime is such a huge like ethical responsibility. I guess it is very frustrating to sit there and watch those press conferences and be like,
Yeah,
what are you even saying? I guess that kind of makes you want to get involved even more.
yeah, yeah. So I did my first show was because I got my stuff. I tested stuff out from like the end of October, I think Halloween or something. And then for a couple of days, I did my test, and then the first show was that first week of November. I think it was November 4th or 5th or 6th, somewhere around there. Uh, was the first show, and yeah, it was a Sunday, and it was a Sunday morning. I was doing a show Sunday early afternoon, and that's when it wasn't even. Yeah, it was like a week later when that crime happened, and it was just. I remember we were talking about something else, and I remember watching uh, the the news clip video of it taking place right when they were talking about it on the news, and I remember playing that one of those clips, and I was just like, "Whoa!" It's just not that it never happens, but it's just like, "Holy crap!" It's a Sunday, and all of a sudden you see some news like this, and it's crazy, and then you're sitting there waiting for that press conference to happen because usually a press conference would take place,
Right.
and all of a sudden you wake up and the next day and you're like, that's weird. There was no press conference. And then another day goes by and another day goes by and you're like, what the heck? And then they finally have one. And I don't remember. I think we streamed it live, but I know that we might have streamed it the next day. I remember, I'm pretty sure we did stream it live though. And from that first press conference, I'm just like, this is a bunch of BS. Like,
Really?
how are you? Yeah, like the way that they weren't having any information, it was just like, what the heck? And then a few days later, same thing. And then a few days later, same thing. It's just like, man, if this was my child going to school out there, I'd be spazzing out, especially when it comes to to the information and trying to protect the community. It was more gaslighting, and so it upset me as a as a parent if I would have had a child going to school there or anywhere and this kind of crime happened and it was that little bit of information, but you're safe. So it really like captured you right from the beginning because it's like, man, no, this is where you need to stand up. This is where you need to ask questions. This is where you need to highlight and bring awareness and attention to this because this is not right.
So I mean, that's interesting because I've heard a lot of people say that their doubt crept in from reading the PCA. So I think it's quite interesting that you're saying, like, even just from the press conferences. Am I
Mm-hmm.
cutting out?
No, you're
Okay.
fine.
Okay. So that is actually the first time I've heard anyone say that it was actually the press conferences that initiated that kind of doubt. But I did want to ask, when you first heard that there had been an arrest, did you feel comfortable that it was the right person? Because I mean, that is something that we have, like, this intrinsic trust of law enforcement, right? That if they say they've caught the person, we usually, I think, tend to just agree with that. I mean, did you jump to a feeling of doubt, or were you already a little bit confused and suspicious based on the press conferences?
Well, it was kind of a mixture because this is at a period. So you're talking middle of November to the end of December, a month and a half. There was a lot of shows, even though the press conferences didn't make sense. And they never did whenever you watched any of them. But when it came to that, there was that's the middle of November to December was, I only watched News Nation at that point. I wouldn't trust MSNBC, CNN, stuff like that already. Just because when you really look into the topics and really look for the information, it's like that's not being told that that's not being told the way it should be. But that's when I was at a point where I trusted News Nation, but at the same time, it was a lot of, I could sense it went from more reporting to then it's with the Idaho 4 case. It was all reporting, and then when the Idaho 4 case happened, that's when a lot of the glamorizing and with News Nation, and so it was like that was a time period, that month and a half was a time period where I sat back and I'm like, wait a minute. I used to really trust this news organization. And now as I'm watching it, it's, source close to the investigation was constant. And it was about how the person was this, and, this. And so it was a lot of like, what do you trust, and so when they arrested him, and then it was like the day that they arrested him, of course you're going to think that that's the person. I remember I got called, I think it was like 4 or 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. I got a call waking me up like, wake up, they arrested somebody for the Idaho 4 case. I was like, all right, let's go. And then I'm like scrambling to wake up and report it, and I was just like, holy crap, and so you automatically think like, this is the guy, like, look at him, like. But then as you start to, he was arrested, so you had like a week where it was like, holy hell, like, this is crazy, they got him all the way over here. You're thinking, if they got him all the way over there, they must have had like something huge, something huge. The way that, we were hearing about the way he was apprehended and all this other stuff, we're like, holy crap, like, this is huge. And then a week later, the PCA drops.
Mm.
And as you're starting to dig into the PCA, it was just a couple days after that where I'm back again going, okay, criminally, this does not make sense with what is sitting here. But, when you're breaking it all down, you're like, there's a lot of mistakes. I came from a business world where I was in management pretty much my whole life. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I wasn't even doing that kind of job that they were doing, and for me, I would have made sure my paperwork was straight up legit, like no mistakes whatsoever. I go beyond because I want to make, like, I would feel bad if my clerical error screwed up somebody's justice. You know, I would take that shit seriously. I even took it seriously in my career. Any of that stuff was, I always took it seriously. You have to. And so uh you know, when we're seeing like all of this stuff take place, you got News Nation after that, like coming out with all these crazy stories, and you're like, what the hell? You guys are just getting way more outlandish and shock value. And I'm sitting here looking at this, and so that's when I started to question a lot of the stuff after we really started getting into it those first couple months of 2023. Um, uh, and that's when we got a lot of hell for it too, because uh, you know, it was like, this person's guilty as hell, and I'm sitting there going, yo, if this was like my family member and I'm looking at this right here, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask these questions, especially with how they came at you in the beginning for that whole month and a half, law enforcement, with the lack of information. um you know, the stock photo with a car and all these different things. It was just like, this don't usually happen.
Right.
They weren't able to put out a reward before he was caught. The families were wanting to put out a reward, and they wouldn't even let them put out a reward. And I'm just like sitting there going, this is messed up. So you mix that together, you go to the beginning, because you know, they're going to show you the truth in the beginning. You just have to look for it, because they're in a position where they've never been in that position before. They've never even thought about being in that position before. And when they showed up to that and had to, 3 days later after the crime took place, and after that, you saw, you saw the truth. You saw, the talk about how everybody's safe and nobody has anything to worry, and then the Q&A would take place, and you would see everything just be like, they would actually be telling you, like, so you don't know where this, no, we don't. So how do you know, that this person is even not going to do this to somebody else? I don't know. They showed you who they really were. Like, there's a lot of these press conferences, and most of them are out there, and you see these other law enforcement officials hold them, and it's about information. It's about sharing information with the public, because the public is also a part of assisting and helping these crimes get solved too.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing that I must say I wasn't very used to when I first approached this case, is that you guys have a lot of like openness that you're entitled to, which is a really good thing. So that was something that took me back a little bit. I was taken aback. I mean, like it seems that, the culture of information is supposed to be open. So it must have been very weird, all of the secrecy, when a lot of the times the cases are kind of transparent and the work has been done to show the outcome, right? And this is like, everything about it seemed so secretive from the get-go. And I wonder, like, was that some kind of a shock as well for you, having just looked briefly at other cases? No?
No, because there's plenty of it. The difference is that, see, normally the middle of out in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, normally wouldn't have been on a national platform, not very much. But the national platform, there's, I would say, a majority of places probably are dealing with similar stuff like this. Um, it's kind of like when I bring up the family in the middle of Montana that doesn't have the attention that a certain case might have, but very similar circumstances, and how they just have to accept what's given to them. And we're not just discussing these cases for these particular people, but we're also discussing these cases because it also makes a difference for that family in the middle of Montana or wherever that doesn't have the attention on it. And I think that's the big difference is these areas never had to worry about having the attention like there is nowadays, and I think that's a major difference. I mean, to look at, this is just my personal opinion, but to see how it all went down uh, when it came to the information, and it was one of these things where it's like, yeah, it's got to happen in a lot of places, but they don't have anybody looking at them to bring attention to it, and so nobody truly knows. It's like if you don't hear a tree fall in the middle of the rainforest, did it really happen?
That's true. That's true. And I mean, I wonder how that kind of feeds into the reaction that a lot of creators got when they started to question this case. Because, I mean, I know that a lot of us did feel almost attacked in a way just for asking questions. And it wasn't even necessarily that we were asserting anything contrary to what was being put out, but it was just the act of questioning the narrative that, like, it seemed to attract so much hate, at least on my channel. And I know that you went through that as well. I mean, it was bordering on abusive, what some of us really aren't. I mean, what was your experience of that?
It was wild, man. You would have just because I was questioning the information, you would get branded a certain channel. You would have people doing shows about you, like you're some conspiracy theorist or something. And it's like, no, I'm just, my brain is a very analytical brain. And so it's always like 95% of my thoughts are probabilities, right? With anything, it's an analytical, it's just numbers and percentages and probabilities and all that other stuff. And so when I'm looking at this, and I already have that mind and that brain, which is why I believe I was so successful in my careers, because I had that kind of mind, analytical probability, statistics. And so when I started just really with this case, it just took over and it consumed my thoughts, because a lot of this stuff wasn't making sense probability wise. And so because I questioned it and didn't necessarily go with the narrative, yeah, you got a lot of BS from it. I never understood it,
Yeah, me neither. I wasn't expecting it either. I must be honest. It was, I mean, it was quite bad. And I know that you went through it as well, which, I mean, I don't know, it just seems so counterproductive to, I mean, I don't even fully understand the motivation behind people doing that. It's just like, what do they feel that they're trying to defend? Like, I don't get it. Like, are they trying to defend the narrative of the mainstream media, or are they feeling sensitive about questioning the police. Like I've always wondered what is that culture of
Ego.
attack. You think so?
Oh, it's definitely ego. It's definitely ego.
That's
Because
well,
you're attacking somebody because you think you're absolutely 100% right and they're 100% wrong. Plus misery loves company in that situation too. So there's always a yin and a yang, unfortunately.
yeah,
But that's what keeps the balance, and that's what makes you appreciate the things in life that have beauty and love in it. Because if you didn't see the ugly, you wouldn't know how beautiful something is either. Um, but yeah, a lot of it is ego. You have to. I don't know. In order to, it's like an empath. Their major uh, feature is being able to put themselves in somebody else's shoes, and that requires being humble. And if you don't have that in you, and you're not able uh, to participate in that, then it's got to be ego. So it is what it is. There's always going to be shitbags. At work, out in public, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be shitbags.
that's true. It's good to look at it that way as well. It does highlight the good response because I don't know if you also feel like when you get one good comment, it can kind of just kick out the 50 bad ones that you got before that, because then you kind of feel like you can keep going. Have you
Oh
noticed that
yeah.
as well? Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's those messages mean a lot more than people realize because um, you have to think about social media too when it comes. Like there's so much negativity and hate on social media. And everybody knows it. That's why they're even starting to do restrictions on apps and stuff for kids because it affects their mental health even. So that's one of the things with this is you know there's there's a lot more negativity that get there's a lot more negativity on your plate of food than there is positivity. And so when people do send messages like that, it really does mean a lot more than probably what they realize. Because, you know, um, but yeah, they really do make a difference.
Yeah.
It is a tough gig. It is for sure,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. But no, like I was saying, I mean, that's just a really good way to look at it. I think I don't want to say that anything good could ever have come out of such a tragic case, but I mean, it has allowed for the kind of connection that you have with your audience as well. And I think compared to a lot of other channels, that is very special. Like they do feel like they get to know you as well as the case.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I did the camera because in the beginning, you'll see I wasn't even using a camera. It was basically just a microphone that I used with my phone because my computer couldn't even handle like a microphone and a headphone running StreamYard. So I had to just run StreamYard and join with my phone in order to do it. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I even did a camera because it's like I want to be able to for people to feel like they can like they get to know you even more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of like developing your channel to the point that you have it is kind of like trial and error as well. You have to just kind of test what works and see how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, I had in the beginning before I even tried to do this, and even while I in the beginning while I was doing it, I had reached out to a lot of the other content creators for advice or help, and surprisingly, as much as everybody out there says, just email me, and we're supposed to be friends and all this. And I'm like, hey, can you help me? Like, can you give me some? Never get a reply. Uh,
Right.
Never got any help from anybody. I just kind of had to learn it all on my own. And so it was one of these, everything that you see is basically organic. I do it.
Yeah.
I, the graphics and the production uh, and the whole production of the show basically is just a lot of trial and error because I reached out for wisdom about that's why I try and help as many people as I do when I've started. There's a lot of channels that have started from this community.
I
Um,
know.
and that's one of the things that I wanted to do too is, I always it was one of those things where it was like um I want to help people like not have to do the trial and error. I want people to get that extra boost I wish I would have got or that help that I would have got. And so it's always important to try and make sure that I do that too
Yeah.
because you know you treat
And
others like you want to be treated.
of course, yeah, and I think it does make a difference to smaller channels. I mean, my channel also pretty much started here, I think. But I see quite a few people do want to know about the name EvilleCJ. And I know you've mentioned it a few times before, but just for people who don't know, do you want to explain the evil part?
Basically everywhereville.
Right.
Uh, it's it was just something that uh where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? I've lived in so many different cities. I'm just like everywhere, everywhere. Like I've lived everywhere. Uh so it was like a wordplay kind of thing. I've always had fun with like trying to rhyme words
Yeah.
or have different it would sound one way but it means something else just like this. um but yeah, then when I started doing the boots on the ground, it took on a whole another meaning because then it became I want to go everywhere to help out every ville that is out there. So yeah, it was two meanings. The first one was like I've lived everywhere, like I've lived everywhere. But the second half after the boots on the ground was like, yeah, I want to go everywhere to be able to help every community that I can.
And I think that you do to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, because I missed this question, but I did want to ask a little bit more about your initial impressions of Brian Koberger, just like, as a person. Like, do you remember your experience of first seeing his picture or hearing his name and stuff like that? Do you remember
Yeah.
what was your response to all of that?
Yeah, when he got arrested that morning, I got that call at 4 or 5 in the morning. Get up, get up, get up, get up. I got that call, and then we watched him get brought in, and then we saw the mug shot, and you're just like, damn, this dude looks creepy as hell. You got to think like that month and a half, we were seeing stuff from Papa Roger. We were seeing all these different things, and like, this really graphic stuff and these videos that were being put out, and it's just like, like if anybody remembers those, like they'd be like 30-second videos in the beginning. If anybody remembers those, and there'd be like flashes of it would be like light flashes, different colors, and you would like see insinuations of actions of a crime, and it was all like morphed together with some weird ass music, and you're just like, what the F, man? like there was a lot of, and then the brutality of it too. You would, so when you think that the person that's getting arrested was the person that committed these brutal crimes, you're hearing all these different stories, about uh, their injuries and all these different things, and you're just like, dang. And you see him get arrested, and you automatically think, like I said, if they're going across the country to arrest him, they're apprehending him the way that they apprehended him, and then you're seeing him being walked in and walked out, you could think anybody looks like a monster,
Yeah.
just because you already have it in the back of your mind that, dang, this is the one that did all of this stuff. You automatically look at him as a monster. You could be the most attractive person and still be looked at like a monster. I mean, how many of these SKs are out there that, oh, he's so handsome? That's like, yeah, don't go on a date,
Yeah.
But you could look at anybody. And so, yeah, the first couple days, I'm like, man, this dude, this is a guy that did this. And then, like I said, we start digging into the PCA, and then like a few days, a week after really digging into it, and I'm like, I'm seeing these contradictions. That's one of the things that from my career in management, it was always about looking at the fine details of everything, and so I applied that into this, looking into this stuff, and it's looking at the fine details. There's a lot of my management experience I have applied into what I do on YouTube, and how I approach information, how I look at information, how I disseminate information, all of that. I use a lot of that with how I'm kind of digging into these cases too, because it's all about the fine details and things that get overlooked, because there's always something that's overlooked. That's why the crime is still, there's no justice for it yet.
Right. How many years did you work in management, did you say?
I started in management when I was 21.
Okay.
All the way up until right before I started doing the YouTube show. I got burned out.
Yeah. That kind of environment, I guess, can do that.
I mean, I was successful, but like I said, it just I don't know. I would come home, before I always felt like I made a difference, which I did at these companies. But with, offspring, they're going off blazing their own path. I was used to my mind was always taken up with work and school and homework and band practices and football games and all these different things, and all these different events and stuff. And then that's when I was like, I would come home, and instead of being busy with all those things, now I was in that phase of my life where it was, I had like free time that I never had before, and I hadn't been used to it, because like I said, I had raised my daughter full custody from when she was around 10 years old. And so literally everything was consumed with that. And then so a few years after, and then I'm sitting there like, man, I don't know what to do with my time anymore, And so that's when I started like getting that feeling like I'm not making a difference. or I could, not that I'm not making a difference, but that the difference that I was making wasn't satisfying my soul. Um, I would come home, and yes, I would be successful at work. I would come home and I would not feel like it was nice to be able to just sit back and do whatever I wanted, for a while, but it got to a point where at the same time it was like, what if I was on my deathbed tomorrow? Would I wished I would have done something else the night before? And so that's when I was like, I don't know, I need to figure out something else to try and also help make a difference too, because anybody can sit there and eat some chips and watch some TV and just be lazy and bored and feel fulfilled, but not at the end of my night. I didn't. I'm like, damn, I could have done something else, So it was a lot of a mixture of that too.
Yeah. And I guess, like you said, COVID really did contribute to that as well.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see family or nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole world is still recovering from it. But I mean, also at the end of the day, I think it must have given rise to, I don't think it was as normal before COVID to have these kinds of like online communications and stuff like that. I think COVID did help to make that the norm, and it kind of hasn't gone back to normal in a way, which has really enabled a lot of like stuff like YouTube and stuff to be more normal. Do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, there's always like chat rooms and stuff, message boards and stuff like that. But I don't know. I didn't really start watching YouTube for TV until I cut the cord. In 2017, 2018. So I don't know what really I would watch some like sports stuff, and there'd be people chatting and talking on there and stuff. So I don't really know when all of it really started. Yeah, I don't really know. I know COVID definitely boosted. There's a lot of people started doing their shows or their podcasts because of COVID. Being restricted.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you as well. When it comes to Brian Koberger and the whole Idaho 4 case and stuff like that, a lot of people read a lot into the fact that Koberger is a criminology student, and they seem to feel that that's something that's like very significant for his guilt or innocence and for the actual case. And I'm curious about what you think of that. I mean, if you think about how many criminologists there are in the world that don't commit crimes, how significant do you feel it is in this case?
I mean, the more you know what not to do. So if it's, to me, if it's significant, it would mean that that person is even more of a fool for leaving the breadcrumbs that they did. Because if you know that you're not supposed to leave breadcrumbs and then you do it anyway, I mean, I don't know. There's two different ways you can look at it. One of it is, oh my gosh, like any of these other people, oh, they learned this and they were able to use it to do this. It could look good or bad, but I don't know. Again, you look back at the information, you look back at what's left. You even look forward to these court hearings that we're seeing and what's still not there, after all this time. So you could look at it different ways, really. It's just the person's perspective.
Yeah, and I guess that is the case with a lot of how he's perceived as well. I mean, maybe it is also to do with just the narrative that's coming out and how things are prompted to you in order to think things are a certain way. Because, like you said, which was interesting, is that you can make anybody look like a monster. So I think that that's a really good way to look at it as well. Is that people don't even see that factor as possibly being a good thing for him, because why would a criminologist make those mistakes? So that is a good point.
I mean, not to make them if you know that they're, you would automatically know. So
Yeah.
that's why I question a lot of the things that I did, because I've never studied, those kind of forensics. And so, but I can tell you right now, just based off of the knowledge that I have, uh, some stuff you don't need cloud-based forensic classes to figure out. Yep, that'll catch you. It's common sense. A lot of the time, it's small details. Again, it's small details with everything. Analytics, probabilities. What's the chances versus not, cost benefit, all of it.
Yeah, and that's not even forensic knowledge. I suppose that's just common sense, I guess.
Or street knowledge, one of the two.
True. Yeah. I've studied forensics, and I feel like I just don't see how a person's job or studies or their PhD program really comes into it that much, because it's not like you're studying, in criminology at least, as far as I understand it, it's not like you're studying the actual crime scene and the mechanisms of the scene. From what I know, which isn't a lot about criminology, I felt like you were probably studying more the factors of the person who commits the crime and the criminal himself and their history and their psychology and stuff like that. So I always just thought that was very interesting, that was something that people would always gesture to. But at the same time, he has done some forensics, cloud-based forensics, I guess.
Yeah. So you would know about security cameras already. You would know about cameras, period. So, you take that knowledge, and that helps, lead you to one of the reasons why I even went out and did the PCA drive, was because, again, that didn't make sense either. If you know about that and that's what you study, well, then you would already know the perfect route to take. Again, I didn't even take those classes, and I gave you the perfect route that you could take, from Steptoe Apartments to 1122, if that's what you were going to do, based off of cloud forensics. So yeah, it does help, because it helps you understand what's capable or not capable. Analytics, probability, again,
Yeah.
always.
So what can you tell us about the steps leading up to deciding to make that trip, and everything that contributed towards the trip, before we get to your experience of, because this is just background so far. I just wanted to know a little bit of your thoughts on certain things before we get to the actual trip, which is the important part.
Yeah, it was a lot of shows. It was a lot of shows discussing it. It was probably, early 2023, mid 2023, when I would always stress to people, this is not true crime, this is just a regular current event show. I would be talking about a lot of other stuff too. Train derailments, moon landings, things like that. But it was the one main case that I really stuck to, because it was the one main case where a lot of things didn't make sense. And so it was one of those cases that I just could not stop talking about, because I wanted, if they weren't going to find the truth, then I wanted to try and help find the truth. Because that's what the family, the victims, the community ultimately deserve, is the truth and justice. And if somebody else doesn't want to step up and do it, well, it's like I've always said, I would appreciate if somebody did it for me if I was in a similar position, to step up and ask questions and uh, you know to have the truth and justice. And so it was, as we were talking about it, over the period of time, um, uh, hell, it wasn't very long. The day that they arrested Brian Koberger, they had that cleaning crew out there. It was always, a couple months later, they brought up the idea of tearing the house down. That's when the Gonsalves family came out and was like, why would you do that? They were really like, they put it out a few times, like, they would create this shock and awe with the public, like, oh gosh, they might tear it down now, they might tear it down. And it kept happening. And so to me, again, you're looking at probabilities analytics, and it's like, well, and history will always repeat itself. You're sitting there looking at it and you're like, yeah, they're going to tear this thing down ASAP. What they're doing right now is they're desensitizing people to it. Oh, we're going to tear it down. Okay, we won't do it. They look like the good guys. Oh, we're going to tear it down. Okay, we won't do it. Oh, we're going to tear it down. Okay, well, we'll wait until this time. And it was desensitizing people, so that way when they got to the point where it wasn't sensitive anymore for anybody, they could go in there and swoop down and tear it down. So as that summer went on and started digging into the Linda Lane, we were digging into the grub truck that December in 22. So we deep dove the grub truck. Then we started exploring other connections. Then we started deep diving the Linda Lane stuff. And then they come out with an announcement at the beginning of the school year for 2023 that they weren't going to tear the house down while students were in school. So there was word about a possible trial happening the early part of the following year. Students would still be in school. So then a lot of people were thinking that they were going to wait until the following school year was over, in between that summer, to tear it down. And so that was a lot of what the narrative was being put out there, was like, oh, we're not going to tear it down while school students are in school. Oh, they're going to wait until the following summer. We already knew from the beginning, before they even knew about BK, we already knew that they went in there with the 3D scanner and scanned the house shortly after the crime took place. So during Halloween of 2023, when we seen the FBI showing up back out there doing the 3D scans, in my mind, I was like, oh, wait a minute. So then I'm sitting there going, I think they're coming to scan it because they're going to tear this house down during the break. And so that's what, literally from October to November 8th, by the a little over a week later, I was in Idaho to document, because I was like, they're going to tear this house down during the winter break of 2023, and I need to make sure that this is documented before it's gone, because this needs to, I need to have the documentation, because this stuff doesn't make sense, and I want to make sure that somebody has it, even if it ends up getting torn down, which is not something that anybody thought, but at the same time it became a reality. It was one of those things where I had to take a couple days to think about it too, because I do have a fear of flying, and it's crazy anxiety, and just it's just not something I'm comfortable with. And it was one of those things where it was like, I don't have a choice but to get on a plane to be able to go out there. So I literally put that fear aside and just sucked it up, just because I knew how important it was to make sure that I could document this before it was gone. It wasn't about me. It was about them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's pretty brave. Like, because I mean, if it all happened in a week and with a fear of flying as well,
Yeah.
I can't imagine like overcoming a fear like that in just a week.
Yeah, I was looking at like how could I get there in a car, and it just wasn't safe at that time of the year, that terrain, that long a drive. It was, I need to make sure that I do this, and I just got to suck it up, because it's not about me. I don't want to. Huh?
Sorry. How long was that flight?
Each way was 7 hours, like 7.5 total.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I had to fly down south to then fly back up northwest. It was a crazy freaking route, but the plane, it was like a couple hours to go down southeast. Then the southeast to northwest trip was like 4 or 5, somewhere around there, I think. But I just kept myself busy with work. That's how
Okay.
yeah.
And you okay.
I just looked down at my computer and just worked.
I can imagine. Just like
I did not want a window seat. It's like any of the planes. If I had a window seat and can I have the window? Yes, you can. Oh my God, you're so nice. I'm like, trust me, I don't want to look out. I don't want to look out. I'm not. Yeah.
I also hate the window seat though, because I want to get off the plane first. I want to like. I don't have a fear of flying. I'm just a very impatient person. But I mean, I'm glad that you managed it okay. Had you ever been to that area before, though? Idaho?
No, never. No, I've only been Midwest to not really the Northeast, but mainly from Chicago to Miami, and pretty much the mid to southeast of the United States. That was it. Chicago to Miami, pretty much.
But have you wanted to see that part of the country?
Oh, of course. I mean, one of the things that I've always loved since a kid was nature. Just because it was always so peaceful to me. And so, yeah, when you would see pictures and videos and things like that of that kind of scenery and that kind of nature, yeah, you always want to, even like the videos that you have, of South Africa, it's like, man, it's beautiful, and you'd want to see it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that's a long flight. That'll probably but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I would like to see, but time.
Yeah.
Just depends on
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. But I mean, what was your first impression of the place when you arrived there? Like
It was.
aside from true crime and the case, like how did it feel?
I fell in love.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I fell in love. I was the mountains and uh, just the scenery is just so beautiful. Um, but I had to like constantly because man, I would be like, there's so many times I was like, man, I would love to live up here. I would love to live up here. It's so beautiful. But then I would constantly remind myself, yeah, but it gets really cold up here too, and we're, we're trying to get away from the cold as we get older. So
Not
uh,
worth it.
yeah, it's like I had to like keep talking myself out of it, really, 'cause I was like, man, I would love to live up here, but yeah, I always had to talk myself out of it with the cold.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. So I mean, I've only seen pictures of how snowy it is. And then, I mean, how did it feel getting into the case from there? I mean, was it eerie in a way, being around that town, having covered the case so much? Did it feel strange?
Yeah. It was out of all the different locations that I've been to the last couple years. Um, it's probably the most, and I've been in a lot of dangerous areas, especially the one that I'm going to be going up to uh, a couple times this week. Even considering that area, that up there, uh, it was. I don't even know how to explain it. It was the most claustrophobic I've felt in a community, if that makes sense. Uh, just because it was one thing like before I got there, you kind of have an idea, but when you get out there and then I started to talk to the people out there, and that's when I started to learn things that I never even thought about. Uh, that's when it really set in. Like, it's the community in the middle of nowhere. It already gives you these kind of vibes, but then when it's a community in the middle of nowhere and you learn all of this other stuff beyond that, then it's like, yeah, it's not necessarily safe. And then plus you also saw the attacks that other people were getting up there as well. That gentleman that was driving around in the truck threatening to do this and that to people, just loose cannons around there. Um, plus at the same time, you're an outsider, you're questioning their way, you know what I mean? So you add that into it as well. Uh, it's it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place, but it's a different world up there for sure.
Okay. So, I mean, you felt like concerned for it wasn't just in terms of the crime that had happened and, all of the emotions
Right.
associated with thinking about that, but it was also like you were concerned for the safety of your person there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you would see how things get twisted, and like the reason I always refer to James' story when I interviewed him from Moscow is his story is very similar to a lot of the Moscow residents. And that's the stuff that I was hearing, but his was on the record. These other ones weren't. And the reason I didn't want on the record when I went out there is because I wanted to know the truth as quick as possible. And when people are afraid to speak up and people are afraid to question things, and they get not reprimanded, but they get treated in a certain way that makes them uncomfortable to question or or bring awareness to something that they feel should be different. That's why, because I knew that if it was on the record, I probably would just get your typical generic answer to all the questions, because they would know that their voice and their face would be, uh, you know, somebody would come across it and then all of a sudden, oh gosh, it's out that they said this. So it was kind of one of these things where it was like, hey, let's just sit down, let's just have a real conversation. Let's just talk as uh one friend to another. And I just want to hear your experience and your story, and so I can gain that knowledge that can then help me, because like I said, if it was on the record, it would be kind of generic, and you would just hear the same thing over and over. I wasn't interested in that. To me, it's not about, hey, what's up? Hey, here's this person. It's not about that. It's about, I want to know the truth. I want to learn. I want to feel your experience. I want to hear your experience. I want to, be in that experience. Uh, and that is what is going to help everything, not only me, but also when it comes to other things that are taking place, or maybe even questions that we thought of or maybe didn't before.
Yeah. Have you always had such a skill for like interviewing people and speaking to them like that? Because I've noticed that you are very like, I've watched some of your interviews and you're like as good, maybe better than some of the people I've seen who have training in it. Was that always a natural skill for you, or did it sort of develop with the channel as well?
I don't know. I always probably a lot of it came from all the interviews that I had to do with my career.
Okay.
Like tons of interviews. But really, I don't know. I think it's not just that, but I think I'm really interested in people and their stories and and how they feel and all those different things. I'm just really interested because, again, it's knowledge, and communication. Communication is one of the most important things, and so to me, uh, um, I don't know. I'm just after knowledge as much as possible, and anybody's experience can help anybody else in many different ways. So I don't know the way that I do it. I don't know. It's just natural. It's
Yeah.
like it's kind of like like I said last night, like it's like two questions and everything else is organic after that, because it's all in the moment, and so you have to treat it um, with the dedication that it deserves, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think that's why you're so good at this, what you do exactly. And I mean, it does make sense that it would have come from doing a lot of interviews before. I hadn't realized that either. Um, I wanted to ask you, you did mention the feeling of being an outsider when you went there to Moscow, Idaho. Um, how do you feel that would relate to the experience of Brian Koberger as well, like being an outsider there? Like, did you at any point feel maybe he felt strongly, looked at as an outsider, or was it like strictly your own experience? Because when I first spoke to you as well, we spoke a lot about the incel theory, and you kind of detailed that situation of putting yourself in other people's shoes, and that really helped me to understand the incel theory. I was wondering, did the feeling of being an outsider relate in any way to what Brian Koberger might have felt arriving in that town?
It's I don't know. It's hard to tell. I don't. I'm sure we grew up with different experiences in our childhood. I grew up with more being exposed to more shit, probably. Um, but then again, he had the schooling. So um, it's I don't know. I mean, you hear the stories of the people that are there and how they don't like outsiders. So I can imagine. I don't think people like went out of their way to treat him like shit or anything because when I was there, uh, like I said, I dressed in the university garb for each school when I went and talked to people in each of the communities throughout that week. Uh, I would literally change my outfit from one to the next because I wanted to maintain that, but I didn't. It was a lot of people that were loving and caring and down to earth, and so I don't think like necessarily he would have been treated that way, maybe to his face, but
Okay.
but if they don't like outsiders, I can almost guarantee you that behind your back, they're probably saying and manipulating things, a certain way or whatever, just because, you know, uh, you're not from there. I mean,
Okay.
there's a reason why they all said that, they don't like outsiders. They don't like they don't like people coming in with, uh, like, hey, somebody's coming from out of state. Hey, there's a better way to do this. Well, we don't care. Even if it's a better way, they don't want to hear it. They want to do what they want to do, how they've been doing it. And it's one of those things where they keep the progression out because they have that protective bubble over it. And that's one of the reasons why they don't like outsiders, is because outsiders will come in there and try to change how they do things. They don't like that.
Okay. And what was your first experience of seeing the house? Do you remember how that felt? What went through your mind when you first approached the actual house?
Yeah, I was getting anxiety like crazy.
Really?
Yeah, even I felt it. I felt it as soon as Pullman. Pullman, not so much, because the route that I would have to take, I'd always get into Pullman first, because I would always rather drive on the Washington State side instead of the Idaho side, because there's two routes I could have taken. Um, Washington State route. I didn't really do the Idaho route because I just didn't trust the law enforcement up there. I just didn't trust the law enforcement in Idaho. So I always took the Washington State route, so I would always come into Pullman first, um, and also leave out through Pullman to maintain that Washington State route. But I didn't really feel it too much in Pullman. But yeah, when you're hitting that highway in between Pullman and Moscow, I didn't really feel it. But once I saw that sign of Moscow, Idaho, and I started to get into those city limits, that's when it really like it started. It started coming, and as I'm driving up around the Kibby Dome, and because I went the quickest route, uh, and as I was driving up uh, around that area, I actually ended up going by the Sigma Chi house first, and that's when it really just because I knew when I was up on that road, like I said, I had studied these roads so much for a year, and then when I got out there and I was driving on those roads, it was very hard at first to try and navigate. Even though I had studied those roads so much, it was hard to navigate just because of all the elevation changes and how a lot of things will get hidden just because of the elevation changes that you normally wouldn't see on like a bird's eye or something. And so as I started to come around and I was going around Sigma Chi, that's when I was like, you're there now, you know, um, and you knew how close everything was. And then as I turned those roads and I'm making my way by the house, and it just, it really, it overwhelms you, the energy, because I'm a person that believes a lot in energy, and and energy is always there, no matter what, and you could definitely feel the energy, mainly like this. I felt a lot of just the sadness as I was getting up there. And then once I pulled up to the back of the house, I felt a lot of the sadness. And then once I pulled back up to the house, I felt a lot of the kind of like the anger part of it, you know.
Yeah.
It kind of switched. It was kind of
Really?
switched. Yeah. Yeah. Because it was weird, because as I was driving by the house and going around, it was the sadness from the victims, and then as I come around and I pull up to the back of the house, then I could feel the anger of what I was looking at. It was like when I went to the back there, I could just you could see, like, as soon as you pulled up, you could see, like, man, this was such uh the way that everything was just laid out. I had understood why maybe they came out and said in the beginning that the house was targeted, because literally when I pulled into the back of the house, I was like, you can't get no perfect than this. Like, this is a perfect opportunity for somebody to do something like this. I mean, with all the different aspects, the third floor sliding door and the sliding door towards the back, and how the hill is just a very short way from the post, and just all these different the trees that would have you would have been hidden from the trees, and how even though you were this hidden, you were that close, and just all of these different things together. It was just like, yeah. A lot of energy.
I can understand how that can be like very overwhelming. And I guess like a lot of things start clicking in your mind as you're just standing there and
Yeah.
like just looking at it.
Yeah, that's why it's so important when I go out to the locations, because that's when when I'm able to go out there, that's when I'm able to like put myself in all these situations, and uh, that's when things will start really clicking. Just being there.
Right. And I mean that did happen. It did happen with approaching the house as well. I mean, what major changes in your theory or your thoughts on what could have happened came from those clicks, those moments?
Yeah, I had never thought that the incel thing was even. I laughed at it before that. But uh, but when I got there and I realized like where people park, why people park in that lot compared to others, um, I saw how close the buildings were. I saw the vantage points that certain people could have. You mix in, all of the activities that were taking place at the house, and that's when the incel theory became a legitimate possibility in my mind, because um, you got people's their first year out of COVID, not doing online classes, they're back hanging out with people. You got uh, if an incel uh, enjoyed that, it was one of those things where maybe even made them even more uncomfortable, because now society had changed back to uh, mingling again, I suppose. And so it was a lot of those things, whereas I just came back, I sat back there and I'm just like, I could, with how close you were, if somebody wasn't like an incel, if they weren't invited and they weren't accepted and they had to park their vehicle there, um, I could see them, that all of that getting in rate, all that stuff mixed together. And that's when I'm like, yeah, it could definitely be a possibility. In fact, it remains one of my main possibilities with what I think could have taken place.
What did you think before visiting? Like when you say you laughed at the incel theory, before that, did you have a theory, or were you not? Were you sort of waiting to see the place?
Well, I mean, um, it was just I don't know if there was necessarily a theory. I don't know. There wasn't really a lot of information that was being put out there, um, other than mainstream media. And so, whoops. So you had to question stuff, and then the stuff that they were telling you was true. So then it's like, well, what person would even do this then? So without really a profile, or if you're going off of who they had arrested during, depending on what time you're talking about, when I mean, I was still thinking that he could have been involved in the early 2023, but it just, there had to be somebody else. Like there was just something that wasn't making sense. There just was something that just wasn't adding up. And I don't know if there was really a profile or a theory that I really was clinging to, just because there was so much confusion. Not until I got there, and that's when I felt like what was probable and what wasn't, and that's what led me to that theory.
Okay. And aside from the house, and you did the PCA route. I know you went. Did you go to the grub truck as well?
No, I never. I was gonna eat there, but um, there was a couple nights that I was there taking footage of around the same time that the crime took place. Early morning hours. But it wasn't. I had so much work that I had to get done in that week's period. It was one of the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to go to this really cool restaurant too, and different things. But my main thing was making sure that I got all the work done first, and I was barely able to get all the work done, and so I didn't. Uh, but I did explore where the grub truck was parked. I explored, but all of Moscow, all of Pullman. One of the first things I did after I went to the house for the first time is I explored Moscow. I wanted to look at the neighborhoods outside of where the university was, or the university housing and those neighborhoods. I wanted to kind of go out beyond that because I wanted to look at Moscow in its totality. And that's kind of what got me into looking into the university and how they manipulate the community. Because as I was driving around, I used to do roofing back in the day, and I was driving around these neighborhoods in Moscow, residential neighborhoods, and I'm noticing a lot of the roofs that would have been replaced quite a long time ago. And normally, that's going to be the first. That's going to be the main repair that a house owner makes, because if you don't have a roof, then everything else falls apart. And so as I'm looking at these roofs and I'm going, man, these would have been replaced a long time ago. What that tells me is that there's not enough funding back into the community, because it's harder to get a loan. It's harder to make that payment for that new roof. It's harder to do those things financially. And so that's, when you're seeing the money that the university makes, and then you're seeing the community not even be able to do the basic necessities that homeowners would do, then you start to wonder about how it's all being, why is this university making so much money, but it's not easy for this guy to get a loan for a new roof? That's a problem. And so that's what really made me start to look into the university and the grants and the programs and the connections and the buddy and all that stuff. Right when we went out there, it was right around that time period when I seen how the community wasn't thriving like the university, and I started to really look into, the whole team started to look into the connections, and because it's like there's something else going on here. There's corruption going on, and it's not fair.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I didn't know that you started that inquiry when you were there. Because I wasn't around yet. I thought it was when you got back. So that's interesting to know. I didn't know that there was that discrepancy around the town.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you noticed that as well. Like, from roofs. Like that's really clever.
Yeah, it's it'll tell a lot. You got to explore it all theories, thoughts. You got to explore it all, and yeah, that's when we started to look into different things when it came to that. And then as I came back, we really started to really dig into the connections there. Just because I had a lot of that work that I had to get done while I was out there. So really, I did spend a lot of time. Um, it was a lot of time alone up there. Uh, whether I was getting footage or talking to community members or students from each university. That's what dominated the most of my time. And then it was like 5-6 hours of driving every day too, driving up and down, back and forth to be able to get down there.
Would you go back? Are you wanting to go
Oh,
back?
for sure. Oh, for sure. I would love to go back. I've always, uh, I've always wanted to go back to cover the trial from the courtroom, and come out and report, outside. You know, I think it's important because one of the things that I've always tried to maintain is just trying to be like having an open mind. You can't trust everything that you're told. You can't believe everything that you're told. You need to do your own, you know. And so there's a lot of that out there, and that's one of the reasons why I would that uh, when I started doing this, that was a goal of mine, is one day that I could hopefully have the opportunity to be able to be out there and report from the courthouse the truth, um, and just with an open mind, not be so
Yeah.
gung ho on one thing.
I think that would be really good as well. Like even just for the book too. I think that would be a really good, like, as somebody who was there so close to the beginning and then to actually be there for the trial. I think that would probably be really, really important.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone all over too. From one is from DeSale all the way out to Pullman, Washington State University. We've explored his area, his neighborhood, where he grew up, and then also all the way out there where he was going to school. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of investment. There's a lot of investment. Um, but yeah, it's just because I don't know, a lot of things just don't make sense about it, and I just have to question things. So it would be nice to be able to, if life will
Yeah,
allow that.
I hope so. I really do. I wanted to leave it just there for background, but I wanted to find out, do you want to answer some questions from chat? Maybe if anybody has anything that they're like from what you've been saying, if there's anything that they want to
Yeah,
find out about.
yeah.
I don't
I
know.
don't.
I mean,
Let's see.
because there haven't
Is
been a
there?
lot of questions yet, but maybe if people do want to just put something in chat as well, it's just so that like everyone's feeling like they're also included in this, and also so that it's not just my questions, because I also just feel like if you want to speak, just speak.
Let me see. Yes, it's for young ladies. Yeah, I don't know. I worry about the ladies out there, and I worry about the ladies out here in Myrtle Beach, because the way that they get treated is I don't know. They need to catch up with the times. Um, and thank you, KB. Yeah. Um, getting the documentation before the house was gone. Let's see here. What's up, Sea Dog? I'm not really seeing any questions. Just a lot of.
I was wondering if people were gonna put
I'm
questions.
scrolling up, so I'm not seeing.
Yeah, no, there's nothing yet.
See. Oh, thank you, Veronica. And here's her link again. If you'd like to sub.
Thank you.
See. Yeah, Red Riding Hood. Who knows if he was working for that. Catherine Ramslin, yeah, at DeSale University. I hope I'm going, Sarah. Ouch. I would like to be able to go, but that's a long. I would. The opportunity would be amazing if it ever takes place, but that is like on the other side of the country, so it's one of those. If life presents it, then yeah.
Far.
Yes.
Yeah. Busby has a question, though. He says, CJ, if you could have done anything differently when it comes to your investigation into Idaho 4, what would it be?
I wish I would have had more time, because I felt like a lot of the connections that I made out there was, face to face. It would have been nice to have more time because a lot of the stuff that I was being told was when they really didn't even really know me. And so if I could have had more time to build more of a bond, it makes me wonder what else I would have been told after more comfort comes. Also, I would have changed how I documented my footage, like how I documented everything. I feel like I could have done better. I feel like I could have done a lot more, but it was really a lot of time constraints just because of the travel and then the daylight. There wasn't much daylight at all that you had to work with either. So it was a very time constraining, jam-packed, I just wish I would have had more time, really. That's it. But I think with how everything went, I think it turned out pretty well. Considering what was in the atmosphere, I think everything turned out better than I had hoped, just based off of how I was able to get in there, do my work, not get bothered, and be able to do that freely, was important. So
okay, that makes sense. Well, there's not a lot of questions. So what I really wanted to do today was kind of just get a background, on sort of your steps leading up to deciding to go there. So I think that is kind of what we managed to accomplish. I wanted to ask you maybe next time, because this is going to be a series, maybe next time we will talk about the trip to DeSales and like the other places that you went, but still keeping the Idaho trip like mostly central.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I actually went out there before I went out to PA right before Idaho. Um, PA, South Carolina, and then I went to Idaho right after that. So yeah, it was in the very beginning and definitely an experience for sure.
Had you ever been there before to PA? Or you had for the Cavalcante case, right?
That was the first time I went there.
Oh, okay.
I had never been to PA really. I might have went to Kennywood in Philadelphia, the amusement park. Other than that, that was about it. But yeah, when we were up there, uh, uh, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really the first time up there too.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was just the roads are screwed.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh?
They got weird roads, no sidewalks.
Oh.
Yeah, so at any moment you can just fly off the side of the road, and who
Oh,
knows
okay.
who knows where you land.
Okay, that's terrifying.
Kennywood is an amusement park in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, I think. I can't. No, it's Pittsburgh. It's somewhere in PA. That was the only time I went to PA. Really, Um I had driven through PA to go to Buffalo for work a bunch. I had to go to Buffalo a lot before for work. Um, but other than that, no, I just never went to PA really, except. But it was beautiful. Just roads were weird.
I'm about to make a huge fool of myself. Where is Buffalo?
Buffalo, it's right by Niagara Falls. It's right. It's basically the other. Niagara Falls is right between Buffalo and Toronto.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, so you've just been through the area at least.
Yeah, just drove, just the very tip, northwest tip of it. And that was it.
Oh,
And then Kennywood. That was it.
Busby's asking who it's named after.
I have no idea. I really don't.
Exactly, Kenny. Right.
I went there one time. I was like, "Oh, that's neat. They got free drinks." It was it was I don't know. It was all
Okay,
right.
we have to find out who it's named after.
I got free tickets off of WNIR 100.1 FM in Akron, so I was like, "Hey, let's go to Kennywood, kids."
I think that's perfectly reasonable. Although I've never been to an amusement park, so
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, they you got to be careful anymore nowadays. That shit falls apart anymore. So
Like,
just be safe.
you with flying, I'm scared of amusement parks. Like I just
Yeah, yeah, it's gotten a little dangerous nowadays. People laxing on tightening them bolts and stuff. So yeah,
it's scary.
it's lazy people, lazy people. That bolt don't need replaced.
No.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm
No,
good.
that will not help my fears.
I enjoyed enough of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
No.
But I've always wanted to see PA, but just because I've seen the pictures of it. That's one thing I'm super jealous. Like I really want to see that place. Just I don't know why. Like if people ask me what I want to see in the States, I would say Pennsylvania, probably.
I mean, the woods are beautiful. That's why the Poconos are made for lovers. The
I didn't know
Pocono
that.
Mountains. Yeah, the Pocono Mountains in PA. They're beautiful. It's all set up for honeymoons and all that other stuff. So yeah, it's the Pocono is meant for lovers. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yep. 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 Yeah. Like Dolly and Kenny Rogers. I don't know. Maybe Kennywood is. Oh my gosh. Is that maybe Caddy is right. Maybe it is. Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. Dollywood and Kennywood.
Maybe
Maybe.
he wanted his own.
That is the song that they sing to Islands in the Stream.
Busby's gonna look it up now.
Oh, it's some old stuff. It's some old country, Busby. That's before Kenny Rogers had plastic surgery. Now he constantly has a smile on his face and his eyes are wide open. Back then, not so much.
So it's like stuck like that.
Yeah, it's stuck like that now. He always looks surprised. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah. Look up the difference between then and now. It's it looks like he's like seeing a plane fall out of the sky or something. But yeah, it's. But hey, I don't know. I could never do it, but to each their own.
Absolutely.
Whatever they want to do.
It's your
I
face.
think age is sexy. That's just me, but
right. I mean, just let it be.
I think age is sexy than the plastic shit. But that's just
No,
that's not even on topic.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
No, I went to Delphi too, but I think that was after I started. Did I go to Delphi before that? I think I was supposed to, but I got sick. I don't know. Who knows? It's been a few years now. It all kind of blends together after even the days do anymore. They just blend together.
Yeah, too much work.
That's all it is, but it's for try and make a difference.
And you do it well.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for doing this too, as we kind of go through these episodes and kind of discuss the story.
Yeah, I was nervous, but it turned out okay because I've done some training in doing interviews, but not like this. So I was a little nervous, but I think it went well.
Yeah, I can't wait to do the next one too, as we kind of get more into the experience. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll do the next episode here. I don't know, tomorrow or the next day, whatever works out for you, whatever's best for you.
Either are fine.
And then I gotta get ready to head out to an unfortunate scene. So it's gonna be kind of sad going there. And kind of seeing that, but it's part of the thing. So there's a lot of things that I've been working on the last couple days. A lot of people I've been talking to the last couple days with that one, and a lot of stuff don't make sense. So that's one of the reasons I'm going out there today, is to try and help make some of this make sense.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that, and be safe as well. And thank you so much for doing this as well.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And there's her link. If you're not subscribed, please go do so. And we'll have episode 2 coming out for you soon. I appreciate you guys, and thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you again, Rosee. And I can't wait to talk more about it. It's it's kind of nice, kind of remembering some of this. I totally forgot about WNIR until we had this conversation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard that radio station for so long now. That's where it got me really wanting to do this. So now I'm gonna have to get that app back on my phone if they still have it. Thank you all. WNIR 100.1 FM, Akron, Ohio. Check it out. It's great talk shows. You'll love it. And you can call in too. They have toll free from anywhere. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all for being here. And peaceful, positive day. Get yourself a snack so you're not cranky. Talk to you later.
422, you guys are okay over there? Alright, is your victim at the hospital? Someone shot there.
Alright, do you see that it takes pictures of the, is it domestic related? She's calling back. We're going to try to give her a call again, and then she just added another phone number to the 13-year-old grandson who's possibly with the daughter. I was just
2412.
Someone calling in so they have a female that are off medication. She's worth the safety. You're checking 12, check them out.
61 Boulevard, 217.
Officer, so you have to talk to me, you know?
is there custody? Really simple with
Anyone else close with us first, let me know.
I'll let our supervisor know that the attached.
First time out. 10-4.